as we move along. Our second safety topic is titled Sweating the Small Stuff, Attention to Detail in Demolition Projects. To present it, we're lucky to have Mike Casbon, who's Technical Director of Global Engineering Consultant, ERM. Mike has 24 years of international experience in demolition, decontamination, and construction. He is an instructor in demolition at the OSHA Training Institute and has served for 22 years on the NDA Safety and Health Committee. Mike's also a grandfather of 3. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Mike Casbon.
Wow, there's been some great presentations today, and there's a lot of good things going on, a lot of things to talk about. This is kind of a departure presentation for me. I usually have a pretty narrow safety topic and talk about things about how we train OSHA compliance officers, or we talk about a specific piece of legislation and how it works. But I was involved in a lot of these conversations that we have at these events, and people say, what happens? How do these accidents happen? How do things go around? And I said, usually the small stuff. You know, and the wheels started turning, and I said, well, we got these books out there, or these coffee table books that say, don't sweat the small stuff. And I said, well, you know, we really need to look at the small things that are out there. So please do sweat the small stuff, is my response in what we do. Because in my years of accident investigation and years of safety training and so forth, the small things really make a huge difference. You know, one of the first things you see is our GCs and our engineers, and, you know, Tim was talking about earlier, we're asking you questions. But one of the things is, don't assume that everyone's enlightened except you out there, all right? So you got a bunch of people with clipboards running around say, you know, we have your plan here and it doesn't look right. You know your business, right? Be firm, accept criticism. That's fine, and look at it and reevaluate your things, but we know our business and we know what we do, and we know what our equipment's capable of. So take that and look at it and feel strong and feel comfortable with what you do. One of the other topics in the book is resist the urge to criticize. Don't resist the urge to criticize on your sites. Does everybody on your site have stop work authority? Can anybody, no matter who they are, stop the job, no matter what's going on? Are they comfortable with that? And I'm not saying everything has to come to a screeching halt. It may be as simple as like, hold on a minute, let's look at this again. You know, those stop points that we've been talking about today, and do it. If something doesn't look right, we should stop. We should do it, because many times I found in my accident investigation career that when we look at this, that somebody saw something that didn't look quite right, and they weren't sure, so they didn't really want to say anything, and they didn't want to go through that process. But those could be the things that prevent accidents from happening out there. Never make peace with imperfection, okay? The book says make peace with imperfection. I say don't make peace with it. Because if you're unhappy with it, you leave this job site at the end of the day. That wall that you see there that's kind of bulged out, we're done. It's okay. It should be okay till tomorrow. Right? Taking out a bridge. What's going to happen? And we're working on top of this plywood. We take out the bridge decking. We take out the things. We're moving the concrete around. If that one piece of plywood is not secure, or something's not quite right, or somebody didn't check their things, that little thing, you could end up with this. That concrete or something collapsed, or that board slipped out and fell down with a car traveling underneath it that contains a family with children. Always contains a family with children when something bad like this happens. It's never the bad person that gets hit by this stuff. It's always a good situation. And these are the things that happen. It was a little thing. Was that board in there the right place? Did somebody check it? Did somebody review it? The bottom line is this is about all of us working together so no one gets hurt or killed. Mike had mentioned in his presentation, it's been a tough year with the explosive demolition. It's been a tough year for a lot of us in the industry and in many different areas. I mean, I've had 2 people that I considered friends and colleagues in the last year and a half die on a demolition site. And it's unconscionable to me. Nobody should go to work and get hurt. Nobody should go to work and die. But, I mean, Brian brought it up, it's about our families, it's about everything else. Most of us didn't stand up when we were in our primary education, when they asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Most of us didn't stand up and say, I want to be a demolition guy. Maybe William Sinclair, because he kind of grew up in the business. But a lot of us didn't, and a lot of us came into it by many different ways. But at the end of the day, it's all about our families. We do this to make an income, to buy a few of the things we like, live a decent life, and work hard. But we grow to love the industry, which is why we're all here. So it's all about us not getting hurt or killed. So what drives our safety performance then? Are we lucky or are we good? We hear a lot of numbers out here, 5 million hours, 1 million hours, 100,000 hours without an accident. How much of that was luck and how much of that was being good? Our best-in-class contractors, we're going to say it's good, but there's still an element of luck out there. I don't know how many jobs I've been on in my career in doing this where you come into the job trailer and go, that could have been bad. That really could have been bad. And I've had those moments, and I've had several of those moments. And I think we all have. How many times have you driven down the freeway and something happens in front of you that you had no control over? Wow, that could have been bad. It's luck. The only problem is in our safety programs, if we rely on luck and luck to be good, we don't control luck. So eventually, luck runs out. And eventually we're going to have something catastrophic or something terrible happen out there. So we got to focus on being good. We got to be focused every day. And how are you good? If you look at all the successful people out there in the world and all the things they've done, how do you get good at something? You work at it every day. It's the little things. It's the little things that nobody else does. Every single day. Every time. Right? So you look at this from the beginning, it looks like a normal thing until this happens. So don't think of what you have instead of what you want. Think of what you want, okay? Was it a good? When they initially set up this project and when they were doing that, they thought they were in a good position. They thought they were in a good place. It lets go, bounces back, takes the scaffolding out. That's how accidents happen. And that's how quickly they happen. Could this have been prevented? Sure. Every accident could be prevented. Every single time. But we have to look at the little things. Every single time, every little thing. You can't walk by anything. There's a lot, when I see this video, I see lots of things. I look at the scaffolding, okay, they're tied off, great, they didn't hit the ground. That's a good thing. But they don't have a fully decked scaffold. The scaffold's obviously not secure enough to handle any impact or anything like that. There's all those things. So there's a lot of good things, there's a lot of bad things, but we can't be satisfied with what we have. We have to keep moving forward. The book says be flexible with your plans or with your changes in your plans. I don't think we should be in demolition. If we do the planning, if we do the project, if we plan it all out, I don't think we should be flexible. I don't think it should be impossible to change a plan because we know things change when we get out in the field. Sometimes things change, some unplanned events happen. You need to put the same level of effort into the planning to adjust your plan that you do when you put your original plan together. Changes shouldn't be impossible to your plan, but they should be difficult for a reason. You spent a lot of time and a lot of effort planning out your job and planning out how it was going to go. And you can't let an operator or a superintendent or something like that suddenly change the plan that you put hours and months into putting together with one fell swoop. Okay? You have to ensure that your plans are going on properly. Brian touched on the Focus 4 thing. The book says write down your 4 most stubborn positions and see if you can soften them. As far as the Focus 4 go, our most common things, we need to strengthen those positions. We need to strengthen what's on there. Falls, struck by, caught between, and electrical. They account for 75% of all the accidents out there. My numbers are a little bit different than Brian's, but the numbers are there. It depends on what year or what thing we're talking about. They're always there. They're there every year. 79% from these 4 categories. Just think what we could do with a little help in those 4 areas, okay? And do that. We could really significantly change the way accidents happen in industry. The book says allow yourself to be bored. We can't allow ourselves to be bored ever on the demolition site. You know what does happen though, when you're on a job for a long period of time? The first thing that seems to disappear is the backup alarms. The first day on the job, you hear them constantly. They're everywhere, they're moving around. You hear those alarms. After you're there for about 4, 5, 6 hours, they start to blend into the background. They fade into the background. The signs, the warning signs that we put up and that we're obligated to put up in a lot of cases, you may read them the first day you're there, and then they blend into the background. All those things. This sign on here, it's a little bit joke. If you hit the sign, you're going to hit that bridge. Okay? But if you travel this road long enough, there's probably people that drive that road every day that can't tell you what that sign says. Signs are not effective. They're effective for a little while. But we have to stay on top of it. We have to keep people on top of what they're doing, okay? Just like backup alarms go silent, standard operating procedures start to get field modified, right? I know what our JHA says. I know what our SOP says. But come on, Mike. We've done this 100 times. We know what we're doing. Why do we have to go over it again? To be successful in what we're doing, you have to keep evaluating. You have to keep making better. That JHA you wrote yesterday may not apply today. And there may be a new hazard that somebody came across that needs to be addressed. Okay? Don't let yourself fall into that trap. Don't ignore your negative thoughts. I get when I go on my sites, a lot of things, Mike, you're so negative sometimes. You come in through, you see all these things, why don't you look at some of the positive aspects of the site? I see, it's like that movie, it's like I see dead people. When I'm on these sites, I see these things. I see these hazards. And it scares the hell out of me, to be honest with you. You walk around and you see things happen and you see people in positions, struck by, caught between positions, innocently, not intentionally trying to do themselves wrong, but they're in these positions. And I'm a technical director. I'm on the site visiting. I could be out there. I could walk right by it and assume the superintendent or the foreman or somebody else is going to handle that. But you got to stop. You got to look at it. Hazards don't care what your management position is. Hazards don't care if you're the safety guy. Hazards don't care about that. They don't care if it's a holiday tomorrow. They don't care if you're tired. They strike all the time. They're always right there in your face. And they take every opportunity to strike. One of the worst accidents I was ever involved with happened on a Friday afternoon. We were cleaning up to end the job for the weekend. And there it was. It happened. You have to look at every minute of every hour of every day that you're on a job site and look at the hazards and not overlook them. Never get comfortable with not knowing, okay? Now, for example, what's in the dust? What are your workers or what's the public being exposed to? Have we learned a little bit over the last 10, 20, 30 years about exposures? Do you see exposure levels going up anywhere? I mean, everything, when I started out with asbestos, it was 1 fiber per cubic centimeter. Now we're at 0.1 fibers per cubic centimeter. And a lot of it has to do with measurement of our equipment and how we measure in our labs and so forth, but it keeps going down, and we keep finding new things. One of the latest, greatest things in the U.S. is the PCB epidemic, if you will. It's everywhere. If you sample for it, you find it. It's in paint, it's in caulk, it's in all kinds of things. So we really need to be paying attention to what's out there. You know, I mean, what's in that dust? You got a picture of human hair here, and those are asbestos fibers behind it. This stuff is there. We got lead, we have arsenic, we have cadmium in all this stuff. We used all these things because they were great tools and they made our products work really well. But now we found that they're health hazards. And as we take them out, we're exposing our employees and the public to these things. Of the 3 million non-fatal injuries and illnesses every year in the U.S., 2.8 million were injuries. And 4.9 of these cases were illnesses based on respiratory or other illness associated with taking in these dusts. So what that means is 3 million people went to work and came home with an injury in the U.S. last year. 1,500 a day. I mean, 15,000 a day. Think about that. On top of that, 4,679 workers went to work and didn't come home that day, or 23.4 per workday in the U.S. That's just in the U.S. We talked about this. That's bad. Nobody should go to work and not come home, ever. And I know we don't want that. That's why we're here, and that's why we're talking about these things. But, I mean, these numbers are staggering when you look at it. The world protests individuals and other things for various reasons throughout the world. But every year, these people die going to work to make a living, to feed their families. Not to mention the economic impact it has. In the U.S. alone, it's $250 billion a year based on occupational injuries and illnesses. Staggering. Relax. As the book tells me, relax. I can't relax. I just can't relax about any of this stuff. You know, when we're working on these jobs and things are happening and we're getting down towards the end, well, the common quote is, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. But is that really light at the end of the tunnel, or is there a train coming? Okay? You know, that's the way you got to kind of look at it. And there's this dangerous normalization. The more people do something without consequence, it becomes harder to remain aware of the risks. Every day I go to this job. If you have a long-term job, every day that job goes on, you're more likely to become normalized and not see the hazards anymore, as we talked about. One of the big problems we have in the U.S. right now is texting and driving. You know, we talked about all this technology we have and all these other things. There's a lot of people out there on the roads, on their mobile phones, texting while they're driving. And you go in here, it's unconscionable to you. How many of you have done it before? Nobody's going to admit to it? Okay. I mean, I know, statistically, I know there's got to be some people in this room that have. Okay? I've done it. My boss sends me a message. I'm on a 4-hour drive somewhere. I got to get there. He wants the answer now. I pull over. I get it to him. Or if I'm in a hurry, my wife sends me something. Are you on your way home? Yeah. You know, while I'm driving. We have policies. We have company policies. But the immediate happens, and you make quick decisions. I've never had an accident as a result of it. But what I've done is train myself that it's normal, it's okay. What happens on our job sites? Statistically, most injuries happen near the end of a job. Why? Because we're relaxed. We let our foot off the gas. We're almost done. Okay? All the big hazards are gone. We're doing a foundation, you know, we took the foundation out. We're doing a cleanup now. We're just grading the site. What could happen? Struck by, caught between, electrical strike. This is the way it goes, and this is how it happens. So the normalization process is really very dangerous. Don't give up on the idea that more is better. On the left-hand side, you have the picture. This is the way we used to handle dust control in the industry. With the fire hose, the guy with the fire hose and doing it. It wasn't very effective, but at least we had something. If we could have said we have something, that's good enough. But we've gone out, and now we have the misting machines and so forth out there, various different models and different things, and it's changed the industry as far as dust control goes. If we sit back and be satisfied with it, we'll never get better. Cut yourself some slack, right? 99.9% of the time, I'm good. What does that mean? If 99.9% of the time you're good, and you're talking about asbestos, that means for every 1,000 pounds of asbestos, you left one on the ground. There'd be a major plane crash every 2 days. There'd be 47,000 ATM errors every half hour. 591 pacemaker operations would be performed incorrectly this year. I'm getting to the point in life where that's going to be important, and I don't want to be one of those guys, right? 42 babies will be given to the wrong parents every day. That's 99.9%. You want to make sure you don't redefine meaningful accomplishments. Don't ever go away from zero not being the goal. Keep them clear. When you regularly adjust your goals and regularly change your focus within your organizations, causes a great confusion in your workforce. I thought zero was the goal. Well, we had one, so one's the new goal. We had two. Now, so we don't want any more, but two's the goal. It's always got to be zero. And if we didn't achieve that, we have to find a way to change our policies, change our procedures, change our ways of doing things so it stays at zero. You don't want to get into the program of the month club with your safety program. You want to have clear, consistent, concise goals so everyone understands it. Don't lighten up. Don't ever think you're there. I've been working in the safety field for 25 plus years. I've never been done. Never been done. There's always more to do. Successful safety is hard work. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and you're never done. It doesn't stop. Many of you may have seen this before, and if you indulge me, I'd like to read it because I think about this every time I go onto a job site. And it's a poem, and I just recently found out it's the internet, and it must be true because it was on the internet. It was applied it to a gentleman by the name of Don Merrill. It said, I could have saved a life that day, but I chose to look the other way. It wasn't that I didn't care. I had the time, and I was there. But I didn't want to seem a fool or argue over a safety rule. I knew he had done the job before. If I spoke up, he might get sore. The chances didn't seem that bad. I'd done the same. He knew I had. So I shook my head and walked on by. He knew the risks as well as I. He took the chance. I closed an eye, and with that act, I let him die. I could have saved a life that day, but I chose to look the other way. Now every time I see his wife, I'll know I should have saved his life, but that guilt is something I must bear, but it isn't something you need to share. If you see a risk that others take that puts their health or life at stake, the question asked or thing you say could help them live another day. If you see a risk and walk away, then I hope you never have to say, I could have saved a life that day, but I chose to look the other way. I think about I heard this early on in my career, this poem. I heard pieces of it, but it's poignant. How many of you have walked by something you knew was wrong? I have. A lot of us have. You didn't have time. You were going to a meeting. You're with a client. You didn't want to bring it up. Whatever the reason was you walked by. You didn't want to argue with that person anymore. You've argued with them 4 times already today, and you just didn't want to do it anymore. Every time we walk by something, every time we don't correct something, every time we let something go, we're taking a huge risk. Lastly, I think we need to sweat the small stuff, meaning our children, right? I said in this presentation, no one stood up in primary school and said, I want to be a demolition guy when I do that. And these are the things in the U.S. in 2014 that kids wanted to be when they grew up. I'd love someday for demolition to be on that list. I love this industry. I really love what it's done for me and my family and all the things. I love the people I've met. It's quality people. And it's a great industry to be in. And we should make it that way for our kids and stop having the bad years and stop having the things that we have. We can do it. It's possible. Zero is possible for all of us. There's no question. Thanks. Any questions?
On major projects, we've identified an issue which is project fatigue, whereby operatives, because they're in the same environment for a long term, become complacent because of being there. So what we now do is an active rotational. So you get management and operatives going to major projects partway through, and that effectively becomes to them a new project. And then you reduce down the risk of incident by doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a great program. I mean, and regularly moving people in and out and doing things, you know, is a huge deal. A lot of my crew's experience, we're out of town for long periods of time and away from home. So that wears on you as well. So moving those people in and out and regular rotations of people is good. It also brings its own challenges, right? So continuity issues and some of the other things. So you have to balance that. You know, you have to have a fatigue management program. Yeah. There's a crossover and handoff, yeah. Right, you can't switch one whole crew out and bring one whole crew in. It has to be bits and pieces and parts. But it has to be a regular part of your program. And that should go into your planning ahead of time. If you know it's going to be a long job and you know you're going to have that, you can't expect one human being to be on that site for 3 years. You know, you just can't do it. They can't be away from home that long. They can move in and out and they can do things, but yeah, that's a great thing to do. It keeps it fresh, definitely.